Howdy neighbors, Commissioner Sid Miller here with the Texas Department of Agriculture. We're here today at my ranch. We're inside my tack room. Going to do a little short film today and try to get some good information out there about rural health here in Texas. Texas Department of Agriculture, we do a lot of different things, but one of the things that we're in charge of is rural health care. We run the State Office of Rural Health Care, where I oversee the health care delivery in 191 counties across the state. Including in that is not just ordinary health care, but mental health also. So we've always been concerned about the mental health in agriculture. We have the highest rate of uninsured across our state, the most elderly population, the most accident-prone occupation, and it's probably the most stressful occupation because we deal with flash floods, hurricanes, fires, drought, freezes, market fluctuations, disease. There's no end to the perils that afflict trying to make a living in agriculture. And we don't do it because it's profitable. Most of the time it's not profitable. We do it because it's our heritage. It's our expected of us to carry on the family legacy. We just celebrated our Family Land Heritage Program in Austin, where we recognize those families that have operated the same farm or ranch for 100 years, 150 years. We even had several this time that have been operating the same ground for over 200 years. So it's a legacy. It's kind of in your DNA. That's why we do it. It's not because we like huge profits. Most of the time, those are kind of far and few between. But we do have some good years, and we always think that next year is going to be the best year, right? We're always optimistic, and we're a very resilient bunch. The problem is we're also a very independent bunch, and we try to stand on our own 2 feet. We're a proud bunch, so we don't often ask for help. We don't reach out, and that's a problem when it comes to mental health. It's kind of seen as, you got to be the strong, long, tall Texan that, carries the weight of the family on your shoulders and never wavers. Well, when it comes to mental health, that doesn't work. We're underserved. There's not that many opportunities in rural Texas to access mental health. If you do access mental health, sometimes it's a 90 or 100 mile drive into one of the urban areas. Sometimes if you're in West Texas, it may be a 300 or 400 mile drive. So it's something that we're not used to. It's something we don't talk about. But that's why we're making this film today. Try to bring an awareness that it's okay if if you're stressed out, if you're having mental issues, if you just feel depressed. We want to help you with that. So that's what we're going to talk about today. My family came to the United States in 1700. We've been farming and ranching ever since. I'm the 8th generation. My grandsons and granddaughters will be the 10th generation, and we continue to carry that on. It's a family legacy for us, obviously. I've done a lot of things. I've been an ag teacher. I've raised peanuts. Actually, I'm a recovering peanut farmer. I've been peanut free now for about 15 years. I'm a recovering cattle feeder. I got over that and survived that. But I've grown crops like pecans, watermelons, cantaloupes, hay, grain sorghum, all of those. But I've also raised sheep and goats and hogs, and I still run cattle on my place here and American quarter horses. I breed, raise, and train American quarter horses for the rodeo industry, most specifically roping horses. We have a Wagyu cow and a Wagyu bull. Most people you may not know what that is. They're pretty new to the United States. They come from Japan, an area in Japan called Kobe. Most people have heard of Kobe beef. It's actually a geographical area in Japan where they come from. There's 2 types of Kobe beef, Akuishi and Wagyu. This is the Wagyu breed. So I'll take this Wagyu bull and I'll breed him to my Angus cows, and we'll take those offspring and sell the beef as Wagyu influenced beef. The cow, we'll take her offspring. She's got a calf, and we'll keep all the purebreds to increase the herd. I've got 10 embryos that are purebred that will be on the ground next year sometime. So I'm slowly trying to change my cattle operation over to a straight Wagyu beef operation. But it's getting harder and harder. You know, it doesn't matter if I'm at a dairy farm in upstate New York, or with an apple grower in Washington State, or you know, at a winery in California, or a dairy here in Texas. I always ask them, I said, you know, what are you doing for labor? They say, well, we can't find any. And without exception, they say, we're automating everything we possibly can. You know, the dairies now have automatic milkers, and a lot of the grape growers have, it's usually all done by hand, but now they have developed machinery to come in and harvest the grapes, and we just can't get the labor out on the farm anymore. There's just less than 2% of the people live on the farm anymore. It used to be, you know, 30 to 40% of the people lived in rural areas on the farm, but they've all migrated to the city. It's just a hard life. It's not for everybody. You know, not everybody likes to get up at the crack of dawn and you know, we punch out when the sun goes down, and then even after dark, there's still chores to do. So it's a hard life, but it's a good life. You know, here in Texas, we are a diverse state. We lead the nation in agriculture exports: cattle, cotton, wool, mohair, sheep, goats, horses, and the rest of them we're either second or third for the most part. But you don't think, you know, when you think of Texas, you think of all wells and cattle and, you know, pump jacks and longhorns and prickly pear cactus and Comanche Indians. Well, we're all that, but we're also have a huge shrimp industry, a wine industry. We're growing hemp. Bison, American bison is an industry here. We have not only the American Quarter Horse, but American Paint Horse Association are both located here in Texas. Cutting horses are big. We have you know, the most attended sport in the state of Texas is rodeo. You'd think it would be high school football, but no, it's probably 10 times more rodeo going on than our actual football games. It's a year-round sport. Of course, a lot of horse shows. And independent events like barrel racing and jackpot team ropings and PBR bull riding. So it's a big part of our lifestyle. You know, here in Texas, it's our heritage. It's a way of life for us. It's part of us. You know, we have a, you know, we have a certain swagger when we walk here. We're a little bit braggadocious, and we think that's okay. They say you can always tell a Texan, right? You just can't tell us much.
Oh, my name is Larry Callies. I'm from El Campo, Texas. I have a museum here in Rosenberg, Texas. It's been open since 2017. And I've been in a lot of newspapers and a lot of news because of the museum. People want to know where black cowboys came from. Black cowboys came from slaves. In 1821, they brought slaves here and they had them working cows. They had them working in the house. They had them working in the yards. They would call them boys. Hey, boy, go get that boy that work in the house. That was a house boy. Go get that boy that work in the yard. That was a yard boy. Go get them boys that work in the cows. They were called cowboys. That's where the word came from. Texas is Fort Benton County, Wharton County, Brazoria County, Harris County. This is where cowboys came from. And they did all the work on the ranch. The agriculture work. They were the ones that picked the cotton. There was one that worked in the fields. So the black cowboy was the first cowboy. The black cowboy, why I know so much about the black cowboys because all of my relatives were cowboys. I can trace my relatives back to the 1500s. I came from two sides of slave owners. There I had my great-great-grandpa was a slave owner. And on my mother's side, my great-great-great-grandpa was a slave owner. I even have pictures of my great uncles and cousins working cows in 1500. And I have a real photograph in 1850 of my relatives working cows. So I come from a long line of cowboys. And growing up in El Campo, Texas, I just did what my dad taught me. And he did what his dad taught him. And my grandpa did what his dad taught him. So we come from a long line of cowboys on both sides of my family.
Hey, my name's Evan Owens, and I'm here with Reboot Recovery, where we're overcoming trauma together so that we can embrace a brighter future. You know, so many of us, we deal with traumas in our lives, and if we don't ever fully recover, if we're not careful, that trauma can end up controlling our lives. And since 2011, over 10,000 people have overcame trauma by going through one of our trauma healing courses. But we want to invite you, because now it's your turn. And we believe that anybody can overcome trauma by attending a Reboot course. To do that, you can just go to rebootrecovery.com and you can sign up for free to attend a course today. I think in culture today, there's so many people who have been through devastation, whether that's a bad car accident, a miscarriage, they've been physically abused. I mean, we have data around this that 1 in 6 adults now is prescribed a daily mood-altering medication. 1 in 5, I think it is, girls under the age of 12 is sexually abused. 1 in, I think it's like 12 or 15 boys is sexually abused. So we have a huge issue of trauma. And I think this term trauma sometimes kind of confuses us a little bit, because people don't necessarily know, well, maybe I've experienced something bad, but I wouldn't necessarily qualify it as traumatic. But the thing about it is that trauma is subjective by default. Trauma by definition is witnessing or experiencing a terrifying or horrific event. And if you've lived very long, chances are you've experienced something that would qualify as traumatic. Matter of fact, data shows that over 70% of Americans experience something that they would label as traumatic in their lifetime. And so many of us, we deal with these things, and rather than acknowledging them and addressing them and dealing with them, we deny them. We stuff them down. You can go to your trash can in the house and you can see that the trash is piling up, and then you begin just to step down or to push down the trash, hopefully making a little bit more room for more junk that you can put on there. But eventually what starts to happen is that trash can fills up and it starts to spill out on the floor. And now it starts impacting not just you, it impacts the other people in your home as well. And that's what the way trauma works, is that we can stuff it, and we can stuff it for a certain amount of time, but eventually that stuff starts to come out. And when it does, it doesn't just impact us. It impacts the people that we love. It can hurt our healthy relationships. It can make us turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms. It can make it really hard for us to get over symptoms. Maybe we think we're dealing with depression or anxiety or whatever it is, but maybe the real thing we're dealing with is trauma. As human beings, a lot of times there's 4 things that we do as sort of our default response to trauma. Our default response. And what I mean by default is these are things that if we don't apply certain disciplines, this is just where we naturally go. This is the lazy river. This is where we naturally end up. Let me walk through those 4 with you quickly. So the first thing that most of us do is we deny. We deny that the trauma is going to have long-term impact on our lives. Maybe we make excuses for the people who hurt us. Well, he was drinking, that's why he hit me. Or this person was this way, and that's why they hurt me in this way. Whatever it is, we make excuses. We dismiss or we deny that the trauma is going to impact us. And when we do this, we rob ourselves of a healing opportunity, because until you identify the cause, you can't identify the cure. And so we deny. The second thing that we do after we've denied is we start to cry. And this doesn't necessarily mean physical tears, although for some of us that will be how we respond. But it's when we start to feel this flood of emotions. It might be anger, it might be rage, it might be disgust, it might be terror. You know, maybe if you've dealt with something traumatic, you can go years and all of a sudden you're come face to face with the emotions. You're walking through a store and you come across someone, and all of a sudden they remind you of an experience, and boom, there you are, all the emotions flooding your system, your brain. Again, that fight, flight, freeze response takes over. Maybe we're overcome by anxiety and fear, where we used to be maybe self-confident and self-assured. Now we live in this state of, maybe I don't have what it takes because this person in my life has made me feel little and made me feel small. And so these emotions are extremely unpleasant. None of us wants to feel terror or disgust or bitterness or anger. We don't want to feel those things. And so we do the third step of the default response, which is we numb. So first we deny, then we cry, and then we numb. Numbing is the natural condition that all of us use to be able to keep from feeling or having to engage the pain and the loss of what that trauma took from us. The problem with numbing agents is that over time, any numbing agent, when used too often, it can either cause more problems itself or it becomes less effective. And so you think about numbing, right? Some of us will turn to escapism. We'll start disappearing into an alternate reality. Some of us will turn to more dangerous things like illegal substances, medications, abuse. Some of us will turn to endless types of self-help. We'll end up looking for answers, in any place we can. But eventually, all those numbing agents will start to wear off. And this goes to the last stage of what we do, which is we run. We run to anyone who's offering hope. We run to people. We run from, a lot of times, one traumatic relationship into another one. We run from one addictive behavior into another one. We run and we run. We run to buy things with money that we don't have and things that we won't even have time to use after we've bought them. And if we're not careful, we end up running. We can end up running for the rest of our lives. And we see this carnage, all this trash that's spilled out of our trash can around us. And we see a life that's now been marked by instability, by broken relationships, by addictions and poor coping mechanisms. And all these things start piling up. And we can lose years of our life because we've been busy denying, crying, numbing, and running. There is a better way. We can actually look to things that are going to help us heal, things that are going to heal us rather than further hurt us. So to give you some very practical steps, some things you can start doing right now. And of course, yes, we want you to go to rebootrecovery.com. We want you to register for one of our courses, or maybe you want to start a course in your community. I don't know, maybe your family does, whatever. Here's some things you can do right now. The first is that we need 3 ingredients to be able to overcome trauma and heal. The first ingredient is safety. The second ingredient is stability. And the third is support. Let me quickly talk through those. Safety. What is safety, right? You might think, well, no one's physically threatening me right now, so I am safe. You might be thinking that. But safety is much more than just physical safety. Safety is a feeling. It's an environment of trust. It's a place where we know that no matter what we share, the people in the room are not going to judge me or look down on me. No matter how horrific my past or my experience, they're going to show me grace. When people lead with grace, it's them saying, hey, whether you accept my advice or reject it, I still love you anyway, because I want the best for you. People who are safe people. So finding safety begins by finding safe people. And safe people don't lead with advice. They lead with listening and understanding, and then they follow with some truth. Right? The other piece about safety is that safety enables us to be able to get out of the dangerous situation. Think about it like an earthquake. If an earthquake's going on, I'm not going to begin moving furniture and rearranging furniture while the earthquake is going on. My number one objective is to find safety. Maybe you're in your own personal earthquake right now, and if that's true, the number one thing you need to do is to find safety until the shaking stops. You do that by finding safe people. You look for people who have been through some things, who can say, hey, here's how I dealt with it. And here's a tip, especially if you're a younger person and you're watching this. A lot of times safe people are going to be people who are far older than you. They're people who have lived through some things, who have some life experiences, who can say, I've survived some earthquakes. Let me show you how to get out of this one alive. They're not people who are necessarily in their own personal earthquakes and can just jump into the pity party pool with you, right? These are people who have survived some stuff. The second thing is we look for stability. Stability is the environment where we're able to begin rebuilding. The earthquake has ended. Now it's stable. I'm able to go back into the home and look at the damage that's done by it, and I can begin to assess it, and I can begin to make some initial repairs. Stability is difficult for us because a lot of times, anytime we can feel emotional, if we're feeling depressed or anxious or whatever it may be, sometimes it can feel like we're very unstable. But stability is the mandatory ingredient needed for us to experience upward building. Imagine if we're trying to build a skyscraper and we don't have a solid foundation, how high could you build? And that's the case a lot of times, is we're trying to build without actually having safety. We're trying to build without having stability. Stability is something that happens over time. You can't rush stability. If you've dealt with something very difficult in your life, give yourself some grace. You're going to need a little bit of time before stability is possible. Just as if an earthquake, 30 seconds after an earthquake's done, I'm not going to go back into the house and start patching the drywall or repainting. That wouldn't make any sense. That would be crazy behavior, right? I would be in a zone where I needed some space to process what had occurred. You might be the same. But the second thing we need to find is stability. Stability happens by us building routines and by continuing to surround ourselves with safe people. The third thing you need is support. This is where an organization like Reboot Recovery steps in. We help you create an environment of safety. We help you find a group of people that are stable, who have been through some stuff, but then are going to be with you for the long-term journey. Because overcoming trauma doesn't happen in just one counseling session or in 8 counseling sessions or in one inpatient treatment. It doesn't work like that, because your symptoms are going to come and your symptoms are going to go. But what you're looking at is, how do I continue to find purpose in this pain? And that's where we get into support. Support now says, not only how do you continue to have long-term support, but how do you now use that pain of your past to go support other people? How do you go start helping other people? So the way that we break denying, crying, numbing, and running is by seeking and finding safety, stability, and support. And here's the trick. Here's the thing that most people don't want to hear, and this is the difficult truth. Hope isn't found by avoiding pain. Hope isn't found by numbing your problems. Hope isn't found by trying to make your life less difficult. Hope is actually found on the other side of perseverance. You see, when we persevere through something difficult, it builds our character. And when it builds our character, it enables us to be able to know where hope is produced. Hope isn't produced in numbing our behaviors. Hope is produced when we overcome the difficult thing. That's how we get to hope. And so if you're going through a difficult time right now, one, I encourage you to find some safe people. There are people out there that want to cheerlead for you. There are people in your corner who want the best for you. They want to lead with grace. They want to speak truth into your life, and they want to help you through this difficult season. Find those people. They're there. It may be hard to trust them, but they are there. But then also realize that just running from your problems is not going to help. You have to go through. You have to persevere. And as you persevere through those difficult times, as opposed to being crushed by them, instead of being destroyed, you start to be built up by them. You have character, and that character produces hope. And hope is what we all want. Hope doesn't disappoint us. And so I just want to encourage you, as you're going through this dark season in your life, maybe you or someone you love is going through a difficult time, you will overcome it. I'm a testament to that. I've seen tens of thousands of people through Reboot courses overcome trauma and embrace a brighter future. If they can do it, so can you.
Hello, my name is Jess Stuart. I'm 8th generation Texan here at the Stuart Ranch. Just to give you a little bit of history on the ranch today, this is 8 generations. Like I said, we are descendants of Stephen F. Austin's Old 300, which are the first 300 descendants to come from the southeastern United States, states like Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, West Virginia, South Carolina, North Carolina. And my family got here in July of 1824. And we received, my grandfather's name was John Foster, and he had 2 sons, Isaac Foster and Randolph Foster. And we are actually sitting today at this filming on John Foster's land grant that he received from Mexico, July the 17th, 1824. He got here with 13 kids, which is why he received the largest land grant in all of Fort Bend County, which is approximately 12,250 acres. Today, the Stuart Ranch is down to 128 acres that we still ranch and farm. John Foster bought a lot of cows over, so we are continuing on 8 generations, like I said, of ranching and farming still today. And there's surely some same DNA of cattle today that we have on the ranch. Today we have about 42 head of cattle that we consistently manage. Commercial cows, not any full purebred cows currently. My dad back in the 60s and 70s had Brangus cattle that he actually showed all over the southeast
all over Texas and Southeast, New Mexico, all the way over to Louisiana. But today we just do commercial cows and send them to farm and ranch supplies and auction houses that we currently work on as we speak. Ranching is only on the weekends and at nights, because during the day I work for the YMCA and of all the Fort Bend County area, so it's difficult to balance my ranching and my work life, but it works out because I got to carry on the tradition of 8 generations of 200 years. And by the way, I'll back up a little bit. We did receive the 100-year ranching Fort Bend. It's actually the Texas Land Heritage Award, which is an award given out by the governor and the GLO office and the lieutenant governor and the land commissioner of Texas. In 1976, we received the 100-year award. And then in 2013, we received the 150-year award. But it's worthwhile, and it's up to us to keep the generations going. It's difficult from the standpoint of timing, because there's only so many hours of light in a day that you can keep going, and cows don't tell you that, hey, I'm getting off at 5 o'clock. They can go all the way to as far as breaking a fence to go out at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and you get a call from your neighbor. So that's part of working it from that standpoint. Here in Fort Bend County, they also had the same thing. The women inherited the land and passed it on to the individuals as we went generation to generation. So back in those days when they got here, there was in 1824 when John and Randolph showed up, there was wilderness, Indians, and wildlife, and wild cattle, because Christopher Columbus had actually brought the first cows into the area, and that's what we call mavericks. That's the key thing about ranching, is not only are we keepers of the steak or protein for the world, but I look at it as also here in Fort Bend County, we have a flooding problem. So to ranch, you can't put cement everywhere. So we fight all the time to keep this, green grass and soil, so there's water absorption. Yeah, and on the mental health side, it helps on the good side and the bad side, from the standpoint of when you're out on a horseback or you're out working with your hands in the soil, it makes you release any stresses. I can tell you right now, when I leave the cement work at a YMCA in downtown Houston and I drive out here and I hit this gravel road, I mean, you have a half a mile of gravel road before you even get to my house. So when I come off of that, the stress and any stresses that happen just go. And that's something a lot of people don't really get to experience. And as far as the mental health side for me and my family, and also I open this ranch up to things like this we're doing right now to tell its story, but also to tell its story that for other nonprofits to have auctions and have parties out here, it brings folks that are never used to seeing this atmosphere of wide open spaces to experience and helping on their mental health. And I think that this gets you back to nature, where everybody wants to be. It's more than a state park. It is actually an actual perfect ecosystem of what we came from and where we're going. One big thing that we always dodge is weather. And there's been, I know in my lifetime, 5-6 years ago, we had a major drought in Texas. And that was huge because we were at that time had close to 50-55 head. And of course, we had to get down to about 38, between 35 and 40, because literally there was no grass. And if you wanted to go get hay, you had to pay $100 a round bale, when usually you could get it for 25. And even then, you had a hard time finding it. So from the struggles, there are years where it is a struggle, and you have to take some money out of, like the YMCA and other businesses that my brother works off-site. My dad is retired now. He lives here full-time. But we'll have to use some of our resources from our day jobs to come in to offset those years. But most of the time, the years are set to where the ranching and the cows and the return on investment pay for itself. I look at it like it's not a job. It's really just adding legacy or traditions. We have huge traditions, as you can tell. But when you're around for 200 years and you're taught from knee high all the way up until I'm age 50 now, And then I'm teaching my kids to do the same thing, and I expect them to teach their kids to do the same thing. So it works all across the generations. It's difficult because a lot of times the big ranches are the ones that can make it because they're able to do more livestock, so they have more return on investment. But also at the same time, they have to deal with more feed, more fertilizer. They have to deal with just more issues about fencing and supplies in order to keep the upkeep of the ranch going. So from that standpoint, yes, big is better, but small, you have to definitely put more resources from outside in. So it works both ways.
Hello, my name is Rick Trimp. I'm the president of Living Works. Living Works is an organization that focuses solely on the issue of suicide. Living Works has been around for 37 years, and we're an organization that teaches our programs and provides services all across the globe. Living Works believes that everybody has a role to play in addressing the issue of suicide, and we have trainings for every one of those roles. We do this with a community development lens where we believe that anybody in our communities has a role to play in preventing suicide. We believe that these roles change where people live, work, and play. We believe that it's really important for these roles to be interconnected and to have connections in order to keep people safe from the issue of suicide. We believe in partnerships. We believe in working with other organizations. We believe that Living Works is a key player in that, but we can't do that alone. It's like the old adage of, or it takes a community to raise a child. Same thing with suicide prevention, is that it takes a community to keep people safe. Living Works is an organization that really believes in evidence-based approaches. And I want to talk about that for a minute. All of our programs are evidence-based, and this is really important because suicide is a very serious subject matter, and you need to have good evidence-based programs and services in order to effectively address the issue. We have over 50 peer-reviewed journal articles and pieces of evidence that support our programs, and we won't release a program unless it is built in evidence. Living Works has been fortunate enough to train over 2 million people globally, and we're very proud of that, but we believe that we haven't done enough. And so our goal as an organization is to actually do that annually, and that's one of our objectives. It's our mission, is to create safe communities. The issue of suicide is a significant public health challenge. It affects every community, it affects every individual. And people know that suicide is a major issue. And in the United States, for example, 47,000 people took their lives by suicide in 2019. We know that there's significant community impact when that happens with every individual. We know that there's particular demographics that are at greater risk. And it's really important as we talk about approaches to this issue that we take a community look at this. And so I like to say it's really a population issue. It's an issue that takes a population of people to all come together and to help keep people safe. I want to talk a little bit about the Living Works programs. The Living Works programs, as I mentioned, are evidence-based programs, and we take a very evidence-based approach to how we deliver and facilitate our programs. One of the key things that we really believe in is standardization, and through standardization you achieve quality, and that quality aspect to Living Works programs is really job one for us. The programs themselves are designed to train specific roles in our community, and so those roles are skills based. They're not awareness roles. They're really skills based roles that create community connection. And so in Living Works, when we have our suite of programs together, we can articulate safety nets, and so people become connected with those individual roles. At Living Works, we call that a network of safety. When we surround the individual who's at risk, when we're creating skills within our community, one of the things that's really important is that we keep people safe for now as they reestablish their hope, and that's a journey, and that's a journey for the individual who's at risk. And so our programs, such as Living Works Start, is an online program. Takes an hour to an hour and a half to complete. It's you can take this program on your iPad, you can take it on your phone, you can take it on your personal computer or your computer at work. It's a program that's been very well accepted, and it's a program that's, once again, evidence-based. That program actually teaches how to identify somebody who might be at risk, and what to do with that individual who's struggling. And so it's a really important skill to be that identifier in our communities, and to know what to do and how to ask that question: are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you thinking about dying by suicide? And that's a really difficult question to ask people, but it helps you overcome almost your own personal beliefs, your own personal stigma about that, and really teaches you the importance of asking that question directly. Safe Talk is another one of our programs that's, once again, evidence-based. It's widely used and widely accepted. The Safe Talk really provides the background for suicide alertness. It really develops a skill of intuitive awareness. So it's a face-to-face training. It takes about 3 to 4 hours to complete this training, but it really gives you the skill on how to be aware of the surroundings around you, how to be aware of individuals that may be at risk, and it really helps people identify people who are having thoughts of suicide. Safe Talk is meant for anyone 15 and older who want to promote the issue of suicide alertness, and also really create a mechanism of safety in our communities. Living Works Assist is a 2-day program, and it is intensive training, but it's a really important skill in our communities. Living Works Faith, I want to talk about faith for a minute. It's a new program that we've put out for faith leaders to really develop a skill on how to address the issue of suicide within perhaps their congregations, how to talk about this issue, and how to overcome some of the issues around suicide within our church community. This program is fairly new. It's only about 4 months old, but it's an amazing program that we're very proud to offer to our faith leaders. This program really challenges some of the thinking and creates an environment for study and for self-reflection and prayer. This is one of our important aspects of our community, where people in crisis will actually come to their faith leader, and we want our faith leaders to be skilled around the issue of suicide, so that they know how to address that issue effectively. The program itself takes about 5 to 6 hours of study time. Longer if you really want to go deep into the studying and the reflection piece of this. And we're very proud to offer it as a resource and an ongoing resource to our faith community. With suicide, the opportunity here for all of us is actually to identify a role for ourselves. Living Works really believes that everybody can play a role in our communities. And those roles can be anything from an identifier to somebody who actually intervenes, and everything in between. I want to talk a little bit about the approach that Living Works uses. So I've talked about the programs, I've talked about Living Works as an organization, but really what it comes down to is how do we actually do this? And so Living Works builds strategy with our customers, with our groups that we work with, whether that be a church organization, whether it be a military, or whether it be a school system, construction organizations, health systems. What we do is we come in and actually we help develop the strategy. This is a really important aspect to what we do. Because this could be shaped as a program where it should be easy to implement. It should be an effective approach, and so really important that we establish goals and objectives and really develop an understanding with our client group so that we can come in, tailor our standardized programs to make sure that we're actually meeting the cultural needs of those particular populations of people. We'll never stop suicidal ideation because it is a natural human characteristic, but we believe that we can actually make an impact on stopping suicide loss, and we do that by giving this not only this training, but also with a view of reestablishing hope for that individual who has lost hope for now. And so it's really important to surround people with a safety net that helps them reestablish hope, helps them go on that journey and have that safety net around them so that when they do fall down below the threshold a little bit, that there's a safety net there to keep them safe and help them along that journey. That's our mission, and that's a really important mission for us. And I hope that I've been able to show you how Living Works goes about doing that, and we'd be more than happy to work with any organization to establish a network of safety within any particular organization.
Hi there, my name is Amanda Wickman. I'm the Program Director for the Southwest Center for Agricultural Health, Injury Prevention and Education. We're located at the University of Texas Health Science Center at Tyler, and we're one of 11 centers that are currently funded to conduct research and outreach to reduce injuries and fatalities and illnesses to agricultural workers, forestry and logging workers, and commercial fishing workers. And right now, we're very excited about a new partnership we have with the Texas Department of Agriculture to deal with an important issue, mental health. And not just mental health, but stress and the strain associated with extreme weather events. According to a recent poll by the American Farm Bureau Federation, there are a lot of things that contribute negatively to the mental health of rural citizens and rural residents. Those include the weather, finances, isolation, stigma, and just the stress of everyday life. And we want to address a lot of those in this new project. This project actually pairs extremely well with the mission of our center overall. As we do research and outreach to reduce injuries and fatalities and illnesses, we have to consider that mental health, an illness in and of itself, also contributes to chronic illnesses and also increases the risk of injury while doing agricultural work. So this pairs perfectly with all of the work that our center has done for the last 25 years. In this 12-month project, we are going to try to do several things. First of all, we are going to gather information. We are holding meetings with farmers and ranchers, dinner meetings, and gathering feedback on the resources that they currently use and the resources they need that they can't find. We're also gathering information from partners and other people who work with agricultural producers. All of this helps us to develop better resources as we move forward. All of the resources that we find that are currently existing and the resources that we develop to fill these gaps will be gathered on our website so that agricultural farmers, ranchers, other producers can come to one site to find everything that they need. We are also looking at a training and a toolkit. We're developing this right now, and this will help us to help the stakeholders that come in contact with agricultural producers every day. We recognize that sometimes when farmers and ranchers are dealing with a very stressful situation, they might be talking to their Farm Bureau agent. They might be talking to an extension agent who's helping them with a production-related issue. They might be talking to a Texas Department of Agriculture field agent. And we want to make sure that those people who talk to the producers know how to recognize the signs and symptoms of stress and extreme mental health issues, and that they also are prepared to have those hard conversations. So they recognize the symptoms, and then they have the words. They have the dialogue ready so that they can be supportive and caring and sensitive to their situation, while also pointing them in the appropriate direction to get the help that they need. One of the other things that this project is doing outside of our organization, the Texas Department of Agriculture is also working with the AgriSafe Network on a very exciting development. They are developing a rural-focused hotline. And what's special about this hotline is that the staff who answer the phones will be educated and trained in the hazards that are specific to agricultural workers and the specific stressors that rural residents face, so that they can point them in a very specific direction and they can talk to them in a very specific way that honors their culture and the way that they handle the stress and the daily life that comes along with doing agricultural work. And then the last thing that the project really hopes to do is break down the stigma of mental health. We know that this is a constant problem, not just with rural residents, with everyone. When we say mental health, something negative is struck, a negative chord is struck within us. And we've got to break that down. So many times people think that seeking help for a mental health issue is a sign of weakness. And that's just not the case. It's really a sign of strength that you recognize that this breakdown of your mental health could also lead to a breakdown in your business and in your personal relationships. And so we want to make people feel more comfortable seeking help for mental health issues. Because at the end of the day, we really just want everyone to be happy and healthy and productive. So some of the partners that we've included in the dinner meetings we've had include the staff from the Texas Department of Agriculture. They include Farm Bureau members at the county level and at the state level. A lot of times those are actually our local partners that help us to let other producers in the area know about the meetings. They become champions because they have to first believe in what we're doing. They have to first believe for themselves that mental health is an important issue worth addressing before they're willing to invite their friends. And we've been so thankful to the folks that have done that for us here in Texas already, because it's not easy to talk about this. It's a heavy subject. But by opening the lines of communication and starting the dialogue, we have learned so much. And I think that what we've learned most of all is that people recognize that it's an issue, but they don't really know how to talk about it or where to go for help, or maybe even when it's time for help. Because a common thing we hear is, well, you know, I don't need to go see anybody about that. That's for somebody who has a real serious problem, a real serious issue. And they think that, you know, what they're feeling is just part of the job. It just comes with the territory, being a farmer. And we have to get to the place where everyone values themselves enough to think that just okay and just getting by really isn't good enough. That there's a way to be better and to be healthier, and that really will lead to better productivity on your farm. It'll lead to a more productive place.
Hi, my name is Angela Ficken. I'm a psychotherapist in Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm also an online educator. And today I'm here to talk to you about cognitive behavioral therapy. What is it? How do you use it? And why is it so helpful? It's a gold standard therapy modality for treating stress and anxiety, which is what I specialize in. But before I deep dive into cognitive behavioral therapy, let me tell you a little bit about me and how I got here. So my background is in training in clinical social work, and I've worked at McLean Hospital, which is in Belmont, Massachusetts, and one of the leading psychiatric hospitals in the country. I've worked at Harvard University as a primary therapist to undergrad and graduate students, and for more than a decade I've had a private practice. And on top of that, I've created an online brand called Progress Wellness, where people can access the skills that I teach in my one-on-one sessions in a way where they don't have to see me in Boston. So no matter where you are, you can gain access to the skills I teach in my one-on-one sessions through stress management courses, COVID coping kits, stress buster guides. My goal is to really reach as many people as I can and teach the skills and strategies I do with my one-on-one clients, because these strategies work. If you're stressed and anxious, you don't have to be. There are skills that can be life-changing and empowering to help you feel better. And one of them is cognitive behavioral therapy. And that is one of my areas that I specialize in, and I'm trained and certified. So let's talk about cognitive behavioral therapy and why it's so important. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, essentially says, just because you think or believe something doesn't mean that it's true. But when something feels true, how do you know it's not true? Cognitive therapy says that our thoughts affect our mood influences our behavior increases those thoughts, and our thoughts increase our emotions, and around and around and around we go in this cycle. So if you're experiencing stress or anxiety and you're having stressful, anxious thoughts, your mood is going to be more likely stressed and anxious, and your behavior is going to be reactive to your mood. You're more likely to either maybe withdraw and avoid because you're stressed or anxious, or you're more likely to become more irritable at other people and act it outwardly. And by doing that, you ignite more stressful, anxious thoughts. So that's how the cycle goes. And when we have stressful, anxious thoughts, for example, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're thinking clearly or in reality. But because those thoughts are so powerful and can evoke such a powerful, visceral, kind of physical response, we're more likely to pay attention to them. So for example, say we're in a dark alley alone, right? Why would we be, but work with me on this. So you're in a dark alley and it's just you, a dumpster, and a couple of rats. But intuitively, you know that there's potential danger. And your brain says a message to you, I shouldn't be here, this isn't good, we need to get out of here. And your body has a physical response to that thought. Maybe there's a pit in your stomach, your heart's racing, dry mouth, your eyes are darting here and there, and you're feeling really tense. All of this physical reaction is connected to the thought of potential danger. So your legs carry you out to the well-lit sidewalk. So thank you very much, stress and anxiety, for saving your life and protecting you from danger. So this is an example of when a intensive thought evokes a significant emotional response, a physical response. Those messages connect, the brain and body message connect, and paint an accurate picture of what is. What happens when we introduce stress and anxiety, depression, anger, any hot, challenging emotion into our lives, and it lingers, it stays there, we're in it long enough. What happens is these wires start to misfire. So our thoughts start to evoke very strong emotional responses, and we feel like they connect, but they're not feeding us accurate information. You might feel like you're in a dark alley, but you're not. And cognitive behavioral therapy teaches you how to know the difference. How do you know when you're really in danger and you need to get out versus when are you thinking in a distorted way because you're feeling depressed, angry, stressed, anxious. And because of that, we're feeling bad. And because you're feeling bad, your brain then says, well, I've got to believe this. This must mean something, like I'm in a dark alley. So cognitive therapy is so important because it really helps reframe those thoughts. You don't have to stay in that negative frame of mind. Imagine there's a mountain between you and me. And the mountain is the trigger. It's the situation that's causing you some angst. And your viewpoint is from the stressed, anxious view. CBT teaches you how to come around the mountain and see the same situation from a different perspective. We can't change the trigger. We cannot change what happened. But through cognitive behavioral therapy, we can change how you think about it in a more realistic way, where it's not saturated in stress or anxiety, but through clarity and logic and reality testing, you can say, oh, I can see how I am feeling anxious, but I can also see these other perspectives. And when you do that, you start to challenge your negative thoughts. And the more you do that, the more you engage in coming around the mountain and calling it out and seeing it from a different perspective, the more easy it becomes, where what once used to make you anxious, where your negative thoughts would trip you up, no longer do in the same way, because you now know how to talk back to your thoughts, challenge your thoughts, and reality test. And that is the beauty of cognitive behavioral therapy. That does it for you. And once you know CBT and you know how to do it, you will always know how to do it. And that means that whenever you have a negative thought or a challenging thought that doesn't feel good, you have control over coming around the mountain and really seeing it in a different way to feel better. So let's go through an example. Say you're in a car and you're heading to a meeting and you left early, but despite everything, planning ahead, you are running late. In fact, you're hitting every red light. The traffic gods are against you, but then everybody else in the world has decided that they must be out at that exact hour too, but they don't have any place to be. So for some reason, not only are you hitting every red light, but everybody is driving really slow, except for you, and you have someplace to be. And you're realizing as time is ticking that you might be late. And this is a pretty important meeting that you have to attend. So you're sitting there and you have a thought, this is gonna look really bad if I'm late. I can't be late to this important meeting. I've been planning for this. The clients are gonna be upset. My boss is there. How can this be happening? Why is this happening now? What if I'm so late that I can't even do the presentation? This is gonna look so bad. What if I get fired? You can instantly kind of go down the rabbit hole of negative thoughts just by the trigger of the potential of being late. And then because of the thoughts, you might notice that you're gripping the steering wheel. You're feeling more tense. Maybe you're starting to sweat. And your behavior, you might be weaving and bobbing a bit more aggressively in traffic, maybe blowing through a couple of yellow lights, hoping that you don't get caught, and taking a bit more risk just to get another inch in front of another car. Normally, behavior you wouldn't do, but because you're stressed and you're having stressful thoughts, you are now reacting and acting out that behavior. And by doing that, you are now increasing your stressful thoughts, going further down that negative, anxious, stressed rabbit hole of, this is gonna look so bad, I can't believe this is my chance, I planned ahead, what am I gonna say to them, they're gonna be so disappointed in me. I mean, it can go on and on and on. So this is how a thought, just one thought, can cascade into other negative thoughts. And that manifests emotions, which manifest behaviors, which increase our negative thinking. So cognitive behavioral therapy, again, would take that same situation and say, how do we separate fact from fiction with this line of thinking? We can't change the traffic gods being against us. We can't change the slow pokes in the lanes next to us, but we can change how we think about it. We very well might still be late to this meeting, but getting there as a sweaty, stressed out mess is probably not in our best interest. and might not be realistic in terms of what people are actually thinking about us being late. And we're not going to be thinking clearly because we're so stressed out. So you're not going to be able to make rational, logical decisions as you're thinking that you're getting fired, you're feeling more stressed, and you're weaving and bobbing in traffic. You're not thinking clearly. You're not yourself. So how do you come around the mountain with that type of example, especially when you can't change the situation and you very well might be late? One strategy that I recommend that you try is ask yourself, what would you tell your best friend in that same situation? You probably wouldn't tell your best friend, oh, you're late, like you're done, you're gonna get fired, that looks really bad. It's probably, they're gonna think that you don't care, that it's not that important. You're gonna go in and probably flub because you're so stressed. You always do this. This always happens to you. You can't get your act together. Like, you probably would not tell your best friend that. You'd probably say something more realistic and kind. Like, everybody's late in their life, at least once. Nobody's perfect. And being 10, 15 minutes late isn't, a justification for getting fired. Sure, people might be a little disappointed or irritated, but you can't move, traffic lights any faster, and you can't push people out of the way. You're going to get there when you get there, and the material that you're going to practice and present, and your boss, the people that you're working for, what you want to say. And by being able to do that, to say what would you say to your best friend, you can start to notice how you feel saying those things. Your body might start to relax. Maybe you think you can start to problem solve. For example, calling ahead and saying, hey, traffic gods are against me. I'm going to be running 10 or 15 minutes late. Tell everybody to just grab an extra snack. I'll be there when I can. So when we come around the mountain and challenge the negative thoughts and slow it down, we can see the reality. Being late doesn't mean being fired. Being late doesn't mean somebody's automatically going to be disappointed. We can't control for that, but that's, we're not psychics either. We can't predict what people are going to do, but we do know that we had every intention of being there early or on time. We do know that most of us in our lifetime have been late to at least one thing, and that time and traffic and certain things are out of our control. So when we talk like that, we come around the mountain and can see it from a different perspective. And by able to engage in that type of dialogue with yourself, you start to feel better because you're thinking better. And when you think better, you feel better, you do better. So instead of weaving and bobbing in traffic and being a bit more aggressive, maybe you release some of the death grip that you have on the steering wheel. Maybe you roll down the window for a bit of fresh air. You turn on the radio just to kind of buy you some time, or you call ahead to the office and say, I'm running late, out of my control. I'll be there when I can. And then you get there. Maybe you're a little tense and nervous because you are late and you don't want to be late, but you're talking to yourself so much more nicely, more positively, and more realistically. And that's how cognitive behavioral therapy can help. When you are stressed, anxious, irritated, angry, insert any challenging, hot emotion. Instead of allowing those thoughts that you have to dictate what you feel and what you do, it really is important to just take a pause and ask yourself, what would you tell your best friend? And when you can do that, you slow it down enough that you start to really challenge the negative thoughts. Just because you think or believe something doesn't mean that it's true, even if it feels true. So next time you catch yourself in negative thoughts or going down a rabbit hole and you realize this doesn't feel good, stop, ask the question, what would I tell my best friend here? Write it out, say it out loud. I would try not to do it in your head because it gets lost, especially when the negative thoughts are really strong. So writing it out can be really helpful. And look at those words, and then can you say that to yourself? If it's a fear of failing, one strategy could be to say to your best friend, failing is an opportunity for growth. Without failing, we wouldn't be able to learn. So what if you fail? Nobody's going to die. Nobody's, going to jump and, do anything. The idea is that when you have the skills to really challenge how you think and feel, you have the power to feel better. And that's why cognitive behavioral therapy is so important and so special in treating stress and anxiety. Thank you so much for having me here. I hope that you were able to learn a bit about cognitive behavioral therapy and a shortcut to it, which is coming around the mountain, challenge your negative thoughts, and always ask, what would I tell my best friend here? And that will help you come around the mountain and see it from a different perspective. Thank you.
Back to the light. No, you can't understand what's going on with me. No, it doesn't make sense, but it's just how I am.